The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thanks for attending our webinar today. We changed a little bit the name and we merged two of the webinars that we were planning. So actually we are going to talk about the databases as we already discussed, and we are going to talk about the modification of the customization of the Synergy and Insight through macros and recording of scripts. As we planned in January, that at the end we did not make it. As always, we are more people on back of the scenes. If you have any question, please just type, and either at the end of the webinar we will have a small questions and answers. We will try to address all your questions, or during the flight we will try to answer your questions. Here it's with me, Paul, that he's going to be talking about the databases. Okay, so just before we start with our webinar, upcoming topics, the next webinar, which will be somehow in middle May, will be about the what's new in the Moldflow 2019. Probably you already saw that on the night from Tuesday till Wednesday, depending on where you place, we released the new version, and our product managers will be giving this webinar about what's new in the new release. If you want to go and check our all webinars, we have all of them in our YouTube channel. We last talked about Autodesk Moldflow Advisor and how to set up boundary conditions in Moldflow Insight. If you want to sign up for next webinars and to get emails with the invitation and with the link in order not to miss any of them, you could go to our website, autodesk.com, help webinars, send us a direct email, and yeah, from that point you will get these reminders. So just talking a little bit on the last articles that we released in our Knowledge Autodesk, so the AKN. So some of you experienced in the version 2017 and 2018 some problems with the error 9998. So any standard is not available, but nevertheless you have a valid license, and this issue was mainly, so there was several reasons, but mainly was due to the timeout that for slow network connections, the solvers did not get the right reply from the element tools. Also, well, as you know, we already talked, so from Tuesday till Wednesday, we released the new Moldflow 2019.0. With the new release of Moldflow comes a new Simulation Job Manager, the 7.1, and something that maybe not all of you already know is that we need a new version of the LM tools in order to handle the license management. This is also on the installation file of the new release. You need to deinstall all element tools 11.13 and install the new 11.14. So this should be manually, is not done on the process of installation. And today's agenda, so we are going to start with custom databases, and Paul will give also a database demonstration, a live demo, how we could create new customized databases. Then I will follow up with introduction, very simple, on what is the API and how we could customize our Synergy using scripts. And I will sum up with demonstration on how we could create, how we could record a script, how we could modify that, and how we could integrate this script in our user interface. But now let's give the word to Paul and let's go with databases.
Yeah, thanks, Javier. So welcome everybody. Now we need to stay on the Javier screen. Justin, can you go back to Javier's screen because he's got the PowerPoint? Yeah. Can you go back one, Javier? Yeah, and back one more because that's already played through. Sorry about that. Bit of a. Yeah. So let's start again. So custom databases. So yeah, next screen. So what is a database in Moldflow? Now, most of you have been dealing with materials. That's the most common databases, but there's a lot of others. So we've got processing conditions, geometry, molding machine, and there's many more. So we're going to go through in the live demonstration some of these databases. Now, to get to the databases, it's on the tools menu, and it's the three icons to the top left. The most common database, or the main database, is the default properties. So whenever you start a new study, a process setting, all those details are pulled from the master default database. Ideally, we don't want to change that, so then we use our own custom databases. So next slide. Yeah, and again. So for creating your own personal database, we can use the new database button, and we can make a database for any of these process conditions, properties, materials that are listed, which I'll show in the demonstration. And if you have your own database, you can go back in and edit them. Next slide. So the idea of having a personal database is to streamline your workflow. So if there's something like materials you commonly use, or you have a particular manufacturer you like to use and just certain grades, you can create a personal database for that manufacturer. So it's easy to select and find those commonly used grades. It's also good to share amongst your colleagues. So if you've got many users in the company using the similar grades of material or similar process settings, it's good to have a standard amongst you where everything is in a personal database that you can share amongst other users. So here we have a couple of different material manufacturers made up. The top one, material manufacturer ABC, with a few grades. Or if we have an alternative manufacturer, we can have a list of different grades under there. Next slide. To make a personal database, you basically create whichever one you want to make. So in this case, this is just an example on solvers, and we would either create on a new one or go down to the standard databases. With solvers, there's only one default. Copy it into your personal database and make the modifications. It's a lot easier to show this in the demo, which is why we'll switch over to a live demo to show some of these features. So yeah, next slide. So improving your workflow databases. So basically with a database, we can streamline our workflow. It takes a little time at the beginning, but you set up once and then it's easy to repeat with a few clicks. And the idea is to have all your different options all in one place saved. So each time you do an analysis, you don't make mistakes. You can go in and say, oh yeah, this analysis, I might want to have 40 laminates or 40 intermediate time results, and maybe increase your laminates to 20 for a certain analysis. Other types of analysis, you might want to choose injection molding machine. And in the end, this will save time. So if you're finding you're always going in and changing properties, it's a good way to save time. And it also makes it consistent between different users. So if you're in a company, you can sort of share your databases so you know each user is using the same parameters for your analysis. You might have a load of injection molding machines on site, or you've got a list of customers' machines you use. You can make a database and then sort of name the machines what they're called on the shop floor, so it's easy for everyone to understand what machine you're going to be using. So yeah, next slide, and I'll probably go into the live demo then just to show a little bit about that. So if you can give me control now, Justin. Right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Can you just confirm you can see my screen, Javier?
Yes, we could see.
Right, so fine. So I've got the software already open, and we go to the Tools tab. So if I just go on Search to show you the first button, this shows you, no, not this one, it's the under here, the default properties, and this is the one you shouldn't really change. This gives you a list of all the different databases that are standard in the software. So whenever you go in and say, for example, if we look at parameters and we choose a dual domain analysis, it will always pick up, and if we look at edit, it always uses these inputs. So we have intermediate results, it's normally set to 20, those convergence values, all these are the standard and why they're chosen for each analysis as default. Whenever you go in and create some geometry, you might find that you always create a runner. So if we go to geometry, if we have a look at, say, for example, just to save looking, call an inlet, it's always going to use a Reynolds number of 10,000 with a temperature 25. This is where that information is all gathered. So when you put a coolant inlet on your model, this is where the information is stored. So it's probably best not to change the defaults. It's best to make your own. So if we now go to new, we can choose what type of database we want. So the common one that everyone plays with is material. So if we go on to thermoplastic material, the important thing is you really want to give it a new name. So click on the browse button here and give the database a name. So here I've got a manufacturer already I've made before, material manufacturer. So we could say my personal materials. All this does is gives the name of the database, and this will become the manufacturer. Click on OK. And now we can decide what materials we put into this database. So if we go on databases here, this will show us the complete system databases. Now with materials, we have all our 9,000 plus grades, probably nearly 10,000 now in 2019. Or if we've already got some databases made up, we can click on the drop down and see the user database. They're already on the other manufacturer. I've made a couple of examples. Or, so we go back to system, I just copy a grade, any grade up, and now that's in my database. We can highlight it and edit and give it some unique names. So manufacturer could stay the same, and then we might call this one material 1. Okay, and then we could do a new material again. That's pulling a default in. I'm just changing these names so you can see where they appear in the database when we go to our process settings. So now when I go to choose a material, those two new databases will be at the bottom of the standard list. So here we have material manufacturer ABC with the 2 grades I had in there. And my personal material was the new one I made. And it's got the 2 grades in there. The names I've changed in the wrong place. So I'll just go back now and show you how you can edit a database. So if we go on to edit, this will show you a list of all the databases you've made. It will show you all the databases, so for your material, for your machines, etc. And they all have different codes. This .21000 just means it's a thermoplastic material database. The other codes mean it's a different type. So for my cold runners I've already made for the demonstration, it's got a different number. So if we go into my personal material, you're able to open it and go in and modify. So the trade name is the thing I should have changed. So under trade name, we can call this material 1. And now when we go to the material list, we can see it's material 1 and the other one's still got his original name. So if you're using a material a lot of the times, you can go in and change the name so you know which one it is, how you call it in the factory. Other things we can change is things like the process settings. So here, when we go in and we've got the solver, process settings, dual domain, we can go in, click here. I've already made one for plastic engineer. We can say company settings for dual domain. Okay, and then when we click on new, there's only one default for dual domain solvers, but now we can go in and change some parameters. So here we might want to change, we don't really want to do 500, but some customers do go to that extreme, but write your intermediate results to 500. You can make cover changes and then give it a sensible name. So here we can say dual domain 500 intermediate. We can make another new one. And this time we might want to change, for the warp analysis, we might want to have isolate causal warpage. Corner effects won't be for everything. And here we can say warp with isolate cause. So by setting these up in advance, now when we normally go into the user settings, we might go into our advanced options, and most of you will probably go in and say, well, let's edit. So at this point, whenever you feel you're clicking edit, you might think, can this be a database in the future? So I'll click on edit, and you might go in and change the default settings for this analysis. But if you've already made a database, you can click on the word select, and it shows the system defaults, which of course it always pulls this one. If we go on to user, you will only see the word user if you've made a database for that particular parameter, geometry, etc. And here we can see a list of predefined process settings. So the two I've just made are at the top and the two I previously made at the bottom. So if I choose one of these, select and look at edit, we can see that that's where I'd already pre-selected the 500. If you do make more than one database, when you click on user, it's showing you the contents of all your user databases for that parameter. If you click on the folder here and you want to look at specific ones, it will show you, because we're in parameters, it's only showing me the 10,005 ones. You've got the original one I had previously made, plastic engineer, or the company settings. So if you choose a specific one, it will only show what's in that database. And then you're ready to go. You can do other things. So we could do it again with geometry. So if you're always creating, or you want a database of different runner sizes, etc., we can go into geometry, create a line. And then at this point, when we would specify something, we can go into here, and rather than clicking on new, we click on select, and it will look into our existing created databases. So I think under here I've got a user one, and here see I've got a cold runner 5mm non-tapered, or I've made a cold runner tapered 3 to 5mm. So I've gone in previously and selected and made that, rather than creating it live each time. And then that will have those properties. The last thing we can show is, going back to tools, is maybe with the machine manufacturers, if we do a new database and injection molding machine, it's under process. No, where is it? I cannot find my injection molding machines. There he is. So again, I forgot to click on the name, so I will do that afterwards. So we'll do new, and then we can go in, and maybe with the hydraulic unit, we can change the intensification ratio. Some customers like to work with hydraulic pressure. So we can go in and change the values. Clamping unit, we might want to set to a lower value, and also do not exceed the clamp force. We can call this one machine 1, but you can specify whatever machine you call it on the shop floor. And OK, I will just go into edit because I gave the name wrong. See, it's always important to do the name, because when the name's wrong, it doesn't mean anything. So that's why we said remember to click on the browse button. So here you would have to change it in, just go to Windows Explorer. It's good to make mistakes sometimes. So basically under your documents, you would find it in your My AMI 2018.2, which is the release I'm working in, but whichever release, UDB. And here we can call it rename your database. So now that's good. So now when we go into advanced options, we can go to the select, change from system to user, and then we have our list of machines. So that's a quick way of working. So anything in the software, virtually every setting can be changed and created as a database to use as a standard. Do we have any questions, Javier?
I don't know, Justin, could you check if we have any question?
It looks like all the questions have been answered so far.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, well, I think that's the end of the demo, really. It's quite a simple thing to do, but it's quite powerful. And if you spend time at the beginning just setting everything up, it makes each analysis quite a simple thing to change. So basically, the thing to remember is if you ever find yourself at any time clicking on the edit button, or if you're creating geometry, create a line as I did before, if you ever find yourself clicking on the new button, think, am I going to be doing this again? And then you would go in and make a new one, make a database for all the different features. Okay, there's no questions, and I'll pass back to you, Javier.
Thanks, very nice. Okay, then let's move to the API and script customization. So very rough overview of what we are going to see now. It's two kind of customization. Basically, is what we are going to deal is with the Synergy API and macro recording and modification, the playback. We are going to give a look on the T codes and T sets. Maybe not so many of you know what is that, and it's also a kind of nice feature. And something new that we introduced in the release 2017, which is the customization of the ribbon panels, adding new buttons, grouping different features in one new created ribbon panel, things like that. And we will give a small overview on what means the API of Insight, or the Solver API. So this Synergy API is basically an object linking and embedding, so the so-called OLE programming interface that enables certain functionality to be automated. And this is important. Not everything what we are doing clicking on the user interface can be automated by API, or not in our API. Usually it's a subset of functions that developers publish and allow us to use them to create our interaction with the user interface or with the program. In our case, for Synergy, we have different ways to access the API. The most basic way to access, and maybe the way to start to get the hands dirty, is with the Visual Basic script, the VBS. We could also use the Visual Basic for Applications, the VBA. Probably you know this from the Office package. So actually, I already saw some customers using Excel to create hot runners in Moldflow, so that's possible, the connection between Excel and Moldflow. We could also use the Visual Basic from the Visual Studio environment, and well, maybe more new languages like Python and some others, but this we are not going to cover right now. Then the API on Synergy has some known limitations. For example, material databases are locked out from access through the API, and this is intended feature, so developers consider that it is not needed, that the API is accessing the database and somehow make a loop over the different materials and to extract this information. And we have also some differences between doing a script or recording a macro. So here we will put these slides available to you, but in our help line we have this limitations link where we are describing which of the features of the API are not recognized by macro recording. Yeah, although we have a function that is available for us. And then just like a recommendation, the best way to start using the Synergy API is what is called the reverse engineering. So every single release of Synergy has a bunch of scripts that are already developed and they are provided for you. Maybe already some of you already use this famous ANSYS to MPI to ANSYS or MPI to Abacus. All these scripts are using the same API. You could take a look on those scripts and try to learn something. One script that I really like a lot because it's a lot of the functionalities of the API there and we could learn a lot is a custom report. So we already made a webinar on how the custom report is working, but at the end the custom report is also a script where we are providing single text file with how the custom report should look like, which kind of slides should integrate. But behind this file, it's a script running, and this script is using a lot of different Synergy API functions. That it's really a wonderful thing to get lost and to learn something. Then the macro recording and playback functionality, it's really a very easy tool to use, which allows you to learn new functions inside of the API. When we are rotating, when we are making a zoom, when we are clicking somewhere, if this function is provided by the API, we are going to catch this function in a macro recording. To do that, we will see in a live demo, but basically on the same tools panel, we have this record macro. And then once we record it, we could just play it. If we are going to play it more than once, we could assign one button to this macro. And also the macros can be run from the command line in the view user interface button. We need to activate the command line. We need to copy the script in the folder with the other scripts, and then command line will just find it and execute it from here. Another thing that I think is not so well known is the T-codes and T-sets. This is a really powerful tool, but it's mostly related to the command study mode. You know that Synergy and inside we have customized somehow shell, Windows shell, where you could use the command, for example, run study. We could use the run study command to start simulations without the need of using Synergy or the simulation manager. We are asking the solver directly to start the simulation on a specific study file. There are other commands, and one of them is this study mode. What is this study mode doing is we need to give one input study file, the name of an output study file, and a modifier file, which is a XML file. What this function will do is to copy everything what is in the input study file into an output study file, and some of the settings will get overridden by the information provided in this modifier file in a XML. So we have here on the right-hand side in this green area an example of such a modifier file. You could see here that we are changing some of the parameters on the process settings, but these parameters are not just described by words, they are described by a number, and this number is the T codes and the T sets. These T codes and these T sets could also be found when we export a study file to a UDM file. This UDM file is a ASCII file, so we could open with a text editor. We could have a look inside what we defined it, and we could also learn what are the T codes that we defined. Nevertheless, there is also a help. So if you go to the Synergy interface, on the top you have 3 references to this kind of customization: the Synergy API, the Solver API, and the T code and T code set reference. So there is file help that you could search for different process settings, which is the corresponding T code that change that value. And as I say, introduced in 2017, we have the chance to make new ribbon panels where we could copy somehow again the same buttons that we have spread around the different ribbon panels. In this case, I took a couple of screenshots from Hanno presentation. And what is important to know is that when we create this kind of new customized ribbon panels, these ribbon panels will go or will be placed always at the right-hand side at the end of the ribbon panel where we decide to create it. We could not delete provided icons, so we could not just clean, for example, the community ribbon panel. We just need to leave as it is and then to add wherever we want. It's also important to know that if we run the clean registry, this customization will get lost. But we have the chance to export this to an XML file and to share across the company with other colleagues, to leave it in a central location where everybody has access, in order that everybody has a kind of same ribbon panel. Then the Solver API, this is a little more tough thing that is probably not intended for the normal user of Moldflow. It's more for a research organization, so really, really large companies. What we can do here is to modify or to introduce some pieces of code inside of the solvers of Moldflow. This, nevertheless, could be only done for thermoplastic processes, except the microcellular, so Muscle and CBA, on 3D meshes. It's not working on dual domain or mid-plane. Here we have also a bunch of example projects which are under this path. These examples are written in C++. And additionally to Moldflow, what you will need to have is the ability to compile these C++ files into libraries and to have the rights on the machine to introduce these libraries in the binary directories of the installation of Insight. When you do so and you say to on the process settings you want to use your Solver API, you will get a message on the log area of Synergy saying, at this point we are using your piece of code instead of the Moldflow code. Okay, as I said, This is a quite advanced thing. You could nevertheless take a look on the C++ files provided, and if you want, you could just edit, compile them, and try to run it. And once say this, let's move to the live demo. So here I have my Synergy, very simple part, a 3D mesh on a disk. And in order to make something that is not very complex, but still we do something, I was thinking what we could do. And one of the things that I have been always missing is the ability to give specific jumps on the orientation of the view. You may know that in view, we have the chance to give the rotation angles, but I don't want to come here and start to add, okay, I like this orientation, but I will give like a 10, 15 degrees more in X, Y, X, or Z. So I would like to have a button that makes jumps on specific rotation angles on specific values. And actually what we are going to do now is to create a script that is going to take the orientation of this part as it is and to turn around 15 degrees in each direction. I will create different buttons because create all this functionality in just one button will be very difficult. Or, yeah, let's say difficult because how we define in which direction we want to rotate. Let's do it simple. Let's do it the same script 6 times, 2 for each axis, plus and minus. So first, as we don't know how to do this, let's go to record the rotation of the geometry here by recording a macro. So I will just define recording. And now everything what I'm going to do is going to get stored in this script that is going to get record. So now I have this orientation. I will just turn around a little bit. That's what I wanted. Now let's stop. Now he's asking me where I want to save this BBS. I created in the desktop as a folder is called scripts. And I will call this rotate X plus. Okay, then let's move back and let's play the macro. If we play the macro, we go and say, let's rotate X plus. Say, okay. It's not rotating. Okay. X plus, yeah. Let's have a look on the file. This BBS is a text file, so we could use any kind of text editor. In this case, I'm using Notepad++, but you could use the standard Notepad, which is coming with your installation of Windows. I will open it, and I will search this plus. Okay, so in this case, it was not recorded, so it was empty, so I recorded nothing, basically. Let's record again. Let's let's go to view, and let's change this for 45. Okay, so that should be enough. Let's stop recording. Let's override the X plus. Yes. Let's go to the editor, say yes. And we see here, so we added, so just rotating with the mouse was not there, but if I'm using the rotation view, I could see that I get something. If we go back and let's rotate it again, and we play the macro, rotate X plus, it's coming back to the same position I have at the beginning. But that's not what I want. What I want is to rotate plus 15 degrees. And this is just coming back to the same orientation I used during the recording. So what we need is a function. So we see here that created the macro recording created a couple of lines of code. One is with the degrees of the rotation for the view. So what I need is something that instead of using these values is capturing the orientation of this geometry and then added 15 degrees in one of the edges. I don't know how is this function called, but what I see here is that object viewer is created from the Synergy user interface, and this viewer object has a function called rotate. Let's search if we have something like get rotation or rotation in X degree or something like that. How we could find that? If we go here to the help, we go to the Synergy API reference, and here we could go to the index and let's type the function or the object we know, which is viewer. And here we see the object viewer and all the functions that are inside. And we see there is a print or pan, but we also see there is a get rotation X. Actually, if we make double click, we go to this help file and we see that this function does not expect any input and is returning a double, like the rotation angle. Actually, I could even copy paste an example of the code, and that's what I'm going to do in my code. So I will just go at the beginning, comment out this viewer rotate because I'm not interested on that, and let's show in a message box the rotation on the X axis, and then hopefully the value on the rotation X. So now we save this macro. We go back to Synergy. Let's rotate. Instead of playing macro every time, because I'm working on this macro right now, I'm going to assign a macro to the button number 1. We go here. We say rotate X plus. It's like this. This is the path to the file. We say save and close. Now we see highlighted the button 1, which is going to run the same macro every time I'm clicking. So let's click and we see 143. Let's rotate this just to see that the value is changing. It seems so. 141. 162. Okay, so this is the function actually I'm searching. So this function is giving me back the value of the current orientation. So let's move back to this function. Let's comment out this. And let's copy this piece of code, which is actually the object viewer and the function get rotation X. Let's copy this. And let's substitute by it get rotation in the X axis plus 15 degrees, because I don't want just to leave, because this is just returning me the current orientation. I want to give 15 degrees more. You could give 30 and give jumps from 30 into 30. You could give 10, 5 degrees as you want. Okay, I save this. Go back to Synergy, and then if I'm clicking, you see my part is smoothly jumping 15 degrees every time I'm clicking. Okay, but still, if I change this, go back to the position. So I need to change this, and as I saw here, we not only have rotation in X, we have in the 3 axis, which is actually what we need. Yeah. So let's go back here. Let's copy again this function. Let's go up. In this case, should be in epsilon and on Z. So I'm just leaving the orientation on the Y and Z axis, and I'm incrementing 15 degrees on the X axis. So I save this. go back to Moldflow. Let's move it like this. And okay, so if I'm putting like this, whoop. Okay, so as you already saw in my folder, I created on the same way the different scripts. For example, for the epsilon minus, let's open it also with Notepad. It's just the same function, just get the rotation in epsilon and taking out the 15 degrees. Okay, so what we could do now, it's coming back to Moldflow and to assign the other rotations to the other buttons. You know, let's go to do that. We want a macro. This will be x minus. Let's save. Close. Assign a new one. Macro. This will be y plus. Save. Close. Assign a new one. Macro. Minus. Save. Close. And then macro. Set plus, save, close, and the last one, minus, save, close. Okay, we have all the buttons here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. So we could rotate in every direction, minus and plus. But we have the buttons here, so I would like to have this on the view. Yeah, so we have here the possibility to assign specific angles. I would like to have here also the same buttons from the macros. We could do that doing a customization of the ribbon. So to do that, on the gray area of the panels, doesn't matter if it's longer or shorter, but always on the gray area. Let's go to view. Should not be even on the view, could be any of them, but should be on the gray area. We get this window. Let me do it again. So right click, customize the ribbon. Okay, we click here. Here we have here's a list of all the buttons that we have on the different panels by default. And here is what we are going to customize, okay? So we are going to come to view, and here we are going to create a new ribbon panel. So we make a new panel, and we will say rotation. We call it also view rotation, so this is up to you. Okay, right now it's empty because it has no buttons. So then let's go here to our not home but tools, assigned macros. We have the different buttons. So we assign the first one, we have selected view rotation and we add it. We go for the second one, we add it. The third one, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, say apply, and we see here that the 6 buttons of the customized macros are displayed here. We say okay, and then we could just play as it is. Okay, we could add, we could not change the icon, which is here, but we could add a small description. We'll go to view rotation. What it was, this is the name maybe. Oh, sorry, we not the help. It's F2. No, what then is not here is when we do export, because as I say, we could export our customized user interface. Say export. We could, I will save also on the folder scripts. I will say view rotation. Let's do it like this. If we go to our folder, we have this XML, which is also ASCII, so we could read what is in. And we have here the name, so we could just change it here. Okay. And that's what we could share together with the scripts, of course. Okay. And that's it. That's the end of the live demo. I don't know, Justin, if there is any question on this.
No, it looks like everything's been answered.
Cool. Then let's sum up the webinar. So what we saw is that there are different ways to customize Moldflow, both Synergy and Insight. Also makes much more sense to spend the time on Synergy. We have a very powerful tool, which is the macro recording and playback. That is the easy way, or the easiest way to start get the hands dirty with functions of the API and to discover new functions that probably we are not able to find in the help files. We also saw during the custom databases that this allows you to streamline your workflow, making faster way to get settings done. And if shared across different users, they allow you to work in a more consistent way. And that's it. So I don't know if there's any other question right now.
It looks like one question just came in. If a new version of the software is installed, is the customized ribbon imported to the new software?
Yeah, it's like the databases. So when you install a new release, the first time you open comes up, I will not call it a warning, but it's a screen asking you if you want to import the custom things that you already have in the previous release. If you say yes, all these things, databases, custom ribbons will be also transferred. What in the case of macros, probably what will be transferred will be the buttons, but not the links to the scripts. That's probably something we will need to reassign. But if we are just joining different functionalities in a custom ribbon panel, then yeah, they will be transferred as well. Okay, any other question?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so then I attach you here a couple of links to Autodesk University class, each of them like more than 1 hour, talking only about the Synergy API. So this is just a really very short introduction in less than half an hour. So if you want to know more about that, if you want to practice something, you go to this Autodesk class, Autodesk University classes, and you will see much more stuff. And as I say, so try to reverse engineering. It's the best way to learn. So take a look on the scripts that we already have there in every installation. Take a look on the custom report. And if you have anything, just let us know and we could discuss it.
Hey, Javier, this is Hannah.
Yep.
I wanted to make one closing comment here. There's also a hands-on session that we plan to have at the user meeting in Detroit. That's a couple hours worth of instruction and exercises that we can you can actually go through yourself at the Detroit user meeting. So keep an eye on that and plan for it if you're interested in be more efficient with the use of Synergy. So. Yep,
that's very nice also. Okay, so if there are no further questions, we could just stop here. Thank you all of you to attend the webinar. We will upload this slide deck and the scripts and just for you. Yeah, we will upload also this webinar on our YouTube channel if you want to take it a look later. That's it. Thanks all of you, and see you.